So the Bengals have the number 1 overall pick in the 2020 NFL Draft. And it's assumed, in fact, it's been reported by some people that they are going to draft Joe Burrow, the Heisman Trophy winning quarterback out of LSU. Again, won the Heisman Trophy. He's phenomenal. I love Joe Burrow. I love his preparation. I love his accuracy, his ability to move. I like his interviews and his answers and interviews. I just love everything about Joe Burrow. I am so confident he is a guy that could succeed in the NFL. But here's what's funny. So it's likely that the Bengals are going to draft a quarterback number 1 overall who won a Heisman Trophy. They've done the exact same thing before. In the 2003 NFL Draft, the Bengals chose Heisman-winning quarterback out of USC, Carson Palmer. And it's really interesting to hear Carson Palmer talk about Joe Burrow. He calls Joe Burrow a spectacular talent. He gives him high praise. It's very clear Carson Palmer likes and believes in Joe Burrow. In fact, guess who Joe Burrow's coach is, his throwing coach in the offseason? Yes, Joe Burrow is working with Carson Palmer's brother, Jordan Palmer. Interesting, right? Oh, and Jordan Palmer, guess where he used to play? Jordan Palmer used to be Carson's backup in Cincinnati with the Bengals. But when you hear Carson Palmer talk about the Cincinnati Bengals, it feels almost like he's warning Joe Burrow not to go there. It's like he's saying, hey, kid, don't do it, man. It's not worth your life. It's not worth your career. And Carson Palmer talks about how coming out of college and entering the NFL, he thought he could change the Bengals. He thought he could save the organization. But he didn't understand the NFL. He believed that the most important part of the team was the people on the field. And the reality that he learned is that actually the most important part of a football team is the organization that picks the players to go onto the field. The organization is more important than what you see immediately on the field. A lot of people talk about how, the Bengals have talent. Yeah, they do. For now. Will they in 5 years? I don't know. The organization matters. It's funny. I made a video called, I think I called it Joe Burrow. Basically, the point of the video is I said that Joe Burrow should not go to the Bengals, and he should pull an Eli Manning and say, hey, don't take me. I'm not going there. And people responded, well, Zach, the Bengals have good players. The Bengals have good people on their roster, people that can help Joe Burrow develop as a quarterback. But you do realize Carson Palmer had good players around him. He had TJ Houshmandzadeh. He had Chris Henry, may he forever rest in peace. He had Chad Johnson or Chad Ochocinco, whatever name you want to call him. And Carson Palmer says to this day, the Browns have good talent. He credits Duke Tobin, the director of player personnel. But again, Carson Palmer even points out there's a reason that the Bengals are drafting number 1 overall. They're a bad organization. Carson says that the number 1 most important thing in Cincinnati is financials, the financial aspect of and the business side of football. And the number 2 thing is winning a Super Bowl. Business comes first, Super Bowl comes second, and that's painful for players to hear. In fact, Carson Palmer once signed a contract extension with the Cincinnati Bengals and was promised, Mike Brown, the owner, promised that they were going to make changes, they were going to hire a general manager, and guess what they didn't do? To this day, the Browns still do not have a general manager. What they have is an owner who has Duke Tobin, quote, director of player personnel, but Mike Brown can overrule anything he wants at any time because he will not give somebody the title of general manager and get out of the way. In fact, when Carson Palmer was there, they had so much salary cap space, and guess what they didn't do? They didn't spend it. They didn't use it. They just let the salary cap space stay there rather than to get talented players. They made the playoffs, and they could have tried for more. There's an interesting team right now. The Buffalo Bills have $90 million in cap space. They made the playoffs and went 10-6. And if the Bills really want to win, they're going to spend all that money and go after players and try to get to the next step and win a Super Bowl. The Bengals had the opportunity to do that as well back in the day with Carson Palmer, and they chose not to. They chose not to spend money. They chose not to go for the Super Bowl, but rather than, let's worry about our financials. We don't want to spend money, yada, yada. The Bengals aren't really willing to do what it takes to win a Super Bowl. So this leads us to Joe Burrow. The Bengals are planning to draft Joe Burrow number 1 overall. And it's great for the Bengals. The Bengals are going to get a new star player, a local kid from, Athens, Ohio. He's from nearby. He's a local kid. He's the new star hero of the franchise. They can sell a lot of jerseys. They can give fans hope. And fans in Cincinnati, I'll be there this fall, they'll be like, ooh, things are changing. Things are turning around for the Cincinnati Bengals. They're not changing. Things are not going to change in Cincinnati. The owner is still Mike Brown. Mike Brown is still the owner of the Cincinnati Bengals. And as long as he is, things are not going to change. They were the worst team in the NFL last year. They're a team that has been crippled by their desire to make money rather than going for broke trying to win Super Bowls. Again, there's a reason they have the number 1 overall pick. And if Joe Burrow goes to Cincinnati to play for the Bengals, Cincinnati, great city, I love it. It's literally my favorite city in the world. But if he goes to Cincinnati, he will be disappointed in the long run. Joe Burrow is not going to be fulfilled long-term, I believe, in Cincinnati. But not because of the city. Again, the city's great. It's an amazing city. I love it. I'm going to move there. Literally, I love the city of Cincinnati. The reason why Cincinnati will be unfulfilling for Joe Burrow is because of the Bengals' ownership. Because the ownership doesn't really want to win. They don't want to do what it takes to win games. Carson Palmer wasted years, good years of his career, his prime years, he wasted in Cincinnati with the Bengals, underachieving. Carson Palmer never won a playoff game until he left Cincinnati. And that's a shame because Carson Palmer, you can never win a big game, blah, blah, blah. No, Carson Palmer is one of the most talented quarterbacks I've ever seen. He's got the best deep ball. Him and Russell Wilson, best deep balls I've ever seen in my life. And then Patrick Mahomes, I guess, too, probably. But Joe Burrow, in my opinion, Joe Burrow needs to reject the Bengals and do it hard. You got to be harsh. You can't be nice. You know those no soliciting signs people put on their doorstep? A lot of the times people put a sign out there that says, no soliciting. And the goal is to tell people that want to knock on your door and sell you stuff, a door-to-door salesman, hey, get out of here. We don't want you here. In fact, where I used to live, we used to have a no soliciting sign. Guess what we still got at our house? I lived in my best friend's basement for 2 years, and guess what? We still got solicitors there. We still got door-to-door salesmen, even though we had that sign. Didn't work. I have a different friend of mine, who has a sign that says, trespassers will be shot. Now, the reality is the guy doesn't even own a gun. He just has a sign that looks really mean, and it scares people away. And you know what they don't get? The message works. They don't get door-to-door salesmen knocking on their door. Sometimes you got to be a little bit harsher than you think. Maybe harsher than you really feel in your heart in order to get the message through. Joe Burrow can't be nice. He needs to be public. He needs to be harsh. He needs to say, I don't want to play for the Cincinnati Bengals. They have bad ownership. I will not play for Mike Brown. You can draft me. I won't play. Do it. I dare you. I'm not going to play for you. Close the door for good. Make them draft Chase Young, the guy out of Ohio State. Joe Burrow needs to say, I will play anywhere other than Cincinnati. I'm not going to the Bengals. I actually don't think he's going to do that. I don't think he will do that, but I strongly believe, that's my strong opinion, Joe Burrow should do that. Because Joe Burrow is just too talented. He works too hard. He prepares too hard to be held down and limited by bad ownership. I had a boss one time, worked at a movie theater in high school. We ran out of popcorn all the time. I worked at a movie theater. The number one thing people sell at movie theaters is popcorn. And guess what? My manager was so worried about finances, he wouldn't order enough popcorn all the time. You know how embarrassing it is to tell people at a movie theater, we ran out of popcorn because my manager is dumb and won't spend the money, which, by the way, you make the money back. You can never order too much popcorn. It doesn't go bad. It sits on the shelf, and guess what? You sell it. At a movie theater, everybody buys the popcorn. You're never going to run out of demand for popcorn at a movie theater. But my stupid boss wouldn't order enough popcorn, and it drove me nuts. My point is, you don't want to work for bad management that won't spend money on things you need. And that's what Mike Brown is to the Cincinnati Bengals. Joe Burrow has worked too hard. He's too talented to waste years of his career in Cincinnati. He might have a little bit of success in Cincinnati. Maybe at some point Joe Burrow wins a playoff game with the Bengals, and that'd be awesome. But he can do so much better than win one playoff game. No matter what level of success Joe Burrow has, whether he fails or wins a playoff game or maybe wins 2 playoff games or has a good year, whatever it is, no matter how much success Joe Burrow has in Cincinnati, he could have more somewhere else. It could always be better in a different city with better ownership. No matter what Joe Burrow does, no matter what level of accomplishment he achieves, everything Joe Burrow does will be underachieving in Cincinnati with the Bengals. The Bengals have an unproven head coach who has literally done nothing but lost since he got to Cincinnati. AJ Green, their star receiver, the guy that's supposed to help Joe Burrow get better, might not even be there next year. And there are so many problems with the Cincinnati Bengals. I hope for Joe Burrow's sake he doesn't go there. He is foolish if he believes he can change their ownership. He can't. The number one lesson I take away from Carson Palmer, I watched Carson Palmer on Football Life. It's phenomenal. He was an incredibly talented quarterback who underachieved, and a large part of that was because of the ownership and the organization he played for. Management is key. Make sure the people paying your bills, make sure your boss is a good one. Because that's sometimes the only choice you get is the person that pays your bills. Sometimes the only choice you get is you get to choose your boss. You get to choose who you work for. Joe Burrow may think I'm just at the mercy of the people that draft me. No. Take control of this situation. Tell them, I don't want to play for the Bengals. I refuse. Pull an Eli Manning. Refuse to go there. That's what I think is best for Joe Burrow and his family. Go to a better organization, have a better life, win football games, and achieve good things, great things. Don't go to Cincinnati and underachieve. Now, if Joe Burrow's there next fall, I'll be there next fall. I'll go to watch him play live. It'll be really fun. Zach will have a good time. I'll have a great time. Joe Burrow might not. Joe Burrow needs to say no to the Cincinnati Bengals.